Hello there, my name is Peter Dykes. I'm the Associate Principal Oboe of the RSNO. I'm here today with composer Caroline Metzeler. Hello Caroline, nice to see you. We're going to talk a little bit about the RSNO Composers Hub and about the piece that the orchestra is playing, Into the Living Mountain. So, first up, tell us about your journey through the RSNO Composers Hub.
It's been a really interesting and useful process, I found. So from the application, you're really asked to think about what you would like to get out of the experience. So you really think about exactly what would I like to develop and go for. And that's a good thing to have in mind right from the onset, I think. And then after I was told that I could take part, there was one playthrough of initial ideas, which is again really useful just to see, does this work? Does this speak the way that I would like it to? And so you basically get a step-by-step process where you can go from these ideas that you have in your mind and work out actually how can I make this into a score that's going to communicate what I want it to communicate, and that's actually been really invaluable.
Fantastic. Did you find it an interesting experience? I guess as part of that then, the initial kind of workshop stage, you actually had sort of direct interaction with the musicians.
Yes.
And I know well, as with many professional musicians, the RSNO musicians are quite direct in telling you what works and what doesn't work. I guess that's a valuable part of the process.
It's fantastic because it's how you learn. I think as a composer, it's the best way of taking the music from that imagined space to something that's actually useful to musicians. So the more feedback, the better it is, I think, for the composer.
There was a mentor as part of the Composers Hub, Stuart McRae.
Yes.
So how was that experience working with a mentor through the process? And also, does it give you a kind of an idea that possibly you might like to be the mentor one day?
Well, I thought having a mentor there was wonderful because it's someone who's been through that particular journey so many times and so has so much experience in thinking, you were trying to do this, but the way that this is going to work is if you try this. And that's just offering you all these shortcuts. So I thought that was absolutely wonderful. Also, someone with a sense of humor, I think, is great to have in this situation. Maybe in the distant future, that would be an interesting thing.
Yeah, it's fascinating. The musicians in the orchestra, a lot of the musicians I do myself teach as well, be it at the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland or privately, and it's actually, I realise after a number of years, it's incredibly beneficial for your own craft as well to be actually teaching it. That's fantastic. You talk about from the workshop to the stage as it is this week, Into the Living Mountain. How much has the piece sort of metamorphosized and become into what it is? Is it a completely different idea from what it was originally, or?
I think it's retained its original inspiration, so the core of the piece is the same. I just think it's gotten more and more clear. I think it's gained in clarity throughout the process. So also between the final workshop and between the concert that's going to happen, I rewrote it again because I thought, actually, now I know that it needs this. So I think it's just been a gradual process of refining the ideas. And
that refinement, I guess, as you were mentioning, is that refinement more based around sort of practical terms of what's going to work better, or is it an actual you have a better idea artistically of what you want, or both, I guess?
I think both. I think when you're composing, it's quite tricky to work out how much space an idea needs in time. And actually hearing it performed by lots of people just gives you much better sense of what the proportion of the piece actually is, and if there are too many ideas or anything like that. So it's and that's an experience that you only really get once you've heard it played.
The piece is called Into the Living Mountain. What is it about?
So it's inspired by the book by Nan Shepherd, The Living Mountain. And so it draws on it in two different ways. So partly it's, it admires what the book does, because she writes in such a vivid way. It's amazing writing. She writes about her experience in the Cairngorms, being very alive to all her senses. And so it's incredibly visceral writing, with a sense of awe and a sense of danger, perhaps. And that's something that I thought, this kind of writing really fits with what I was trying to do with the piece. And then at the same time, what I was originally trying to do was convey a sense of the awe of being in nature. So I thought, well, this links it in a really useful way.
Yeah, that is actually with rehearsing the piece. You mentioned visceral. That really is a sense that I get sitting in the middle of the orchestra. So hopefully that really comes across to the audience. I'm sure it will. One thing that strikes me listening to it is as a really, to my ear, a really fascinating use of orchestration and texture. For example, there's bits where you have alto flute playing, but just to add some clarity onto the start of the notes, it's doubled in the marimba, let's say. So is it this kind of light and shade that you've really tried to sort of bring across?
Yes. Working with the colors, as you say, to create light and shade and to create differences also in articulation.
When it comes to a situation like this in the Composers Hub and for compositions in general, do composers, are they sort of prescribed this is the orchestration you should use, or do you get quite a lot of freedom over that?
There's a lot of freedom, which is wonderful, I think. Yeah.
Your own pathway, you're from the Netherlands, and then you came over to the UK to Cardiff. So what was the purpose of that?
So I initially moved there to do a postgraduate degree in composition at the Royal Welsh College of Music and Drama, and then was asked to stay there to teach harmony, and then also stay to do a PhD at the university there. Right,
so you're sort of well ingrained, or you were before you moved to Edinburgh. You were mentioning before. Great. So you're up here now. That's wonderful. Do you have any particular sort of instruments or instrument groups that you feel more naturally at home writing for?
I end up using bass clarinet a lot. I noticed that. And so that's just the sonority that I keep coming back to.
Right. Yeah. It's a very particular sound, isn't it? Yeah. Absolutely. And our bass clarinet player is wonderful. He's called Duncan. Okay. You're meeting someone in the street, or you're just going into a cafe. You're going to get a coffee. And the barista is asking you, what are you doing today? And you say, well, the RSNO is performing a piece that I've written. And so it's someone who you don't know is a musician. How would you describe, if that person said, I might come along to that, if you were to say to them, this is what you should expect when you hear the piece, what do you think? Well, how would you do it?
Well, if you were to listen to the piece, you could expect a mix of things. So there's long, searching, melodic material, and then there's very intense, slightly agitated string writing, and there's lots of solistic timpani writing as well.
Fantastic. Would you say you have a particular compositional style or particular composers that have influenced your style?
Some of the big influences have been Bartók, also Sondheim, and Schütz, I think, are the three ones that really resonate.
Right, that's fantastic characterful variation there. Fantastic. What are you most looking forward to with hearing this piece performed?
The timpani right at the start of the piece.
The timpani right at the start, that's very specific. I like that, that's great. Fantastic. I'm really looking for, I sort of, when I sit there in the orchestra playing new music, I love playing new music. I just sort of wish that I was in the hall listening to the whole thing. If there's, for anybody who's considering the RSNO Composers Hub, is there any sort of advice, or not warning, but any sort of advice as to this is how the process goes and you need to be prepared in this way or that way?
My advice would be, it's such an amazing opportunity to explore what you really want to explore. So use it for that as much as possible.
What are you currently working on in terms of composing?
I'm currently working on a piece for harp and violin, and I'm working on a project which is a music theatre piece for kids addressing climate change, but in a humorous way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So you're often working on more than one thing at once?
Yeah.
Wow. It often makes me wonder, and of course, you know, the time scales for composers are so, it seems so odd because you're in isolation, not in the coronavirus sense, but you're in isolation doing your work.
Yeah.
And then, for example, this piece, the Into the Living Mountain, how much rehearsal time have you got with the orchestra?
So that's about 1.5 hours, I think, in total.
So it's an incredibly quick turnaround right at the end of the process, isn't it? Yeah. I'm hugely looking forward to playing it. I know the audiences really will really enjoy the visceral experience of it. So, Caroline Metzeler, it's been wonderful to have a talk with you about your piece and about the RSNO Composers Hub. Thank you very much.